You're live, by the way.
Well, I don't get the intro message.
Your line is hello, everybody.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Gevain, the publisher of Animated Concepts. I am happy to be the moderator for a very special edition of Madmen in a Box. Tonight, we're going to do a review of Dr. Who Am I? And I'm also going to take advantage to explore the secret origins of my fellow Madmen in a Box as we talk about how they became fans of Doctor Who, why they became fans of Doctor Who, and why and why they continue to hang in there despite all the despite the very fragile state of our lovely show. So I'm looking forward to a real nice evening of learning more about these gentlemen who I've had the pleasure of talking about one of my favorite shows about over the years. My initial first question was going to be, "Hey Jimmy, how are you? And where the hell have you been?" Because he couldn't make it tonight.
He had to work tonight.
Well, first of all,
what is his job?
No idea. He sent a picture of he was on a couch. He was taking a picture of somebody on a computer. Says, "I'm working tonight," and I was like, "I don't know what job you have that lets you do that," but
I think his job is mystery. He's in business of being mysterious. He is a mysterious Jimmy.
Well, before we get started, I have to do the regular introductions. To my stage, I guess it would be stage right, is that ne'er-do-well from Region 4, our good friend Chris.
Ne'er-do-well?
Ne'er-do-well.
That's appropriate.
I like the term menace.
There you go.
Like Spider-Man. Oh, wait.
And next to him is our good friend Joe Corallo. Joe, how you doing tonight?
I am good, Gevain. How are you?
I'm doing okay, my friend. I cannot complain. Below him is my other good friend Landry. How you doing tonight, Landry?
I'm all right. How you all doing?
Doing well. And the person who Chris always talks to like he owes him money, our good friend.
Rent. Where's my rent?
How you doing, Quirks?
You'll get your rent when you fix this damn door.
There you go. Oh man! So,
Hi,
fellas,
I'm Pixel.
so I wanted to start off with what were your thoughts of the documentary Doctor Who Am I? The reason why it came up for me was when we did our review of the Sontaran experiment, and as of those of you who are familiar with Tubi, if you don't catch it right when the show is over, they'll kick you over to something else. And I had never seen the documentary before, and it was interesting because it was about the one story in Doctor Who I've actually not watched yet, which is the TV movie, which is supposed to essentially be if I get it right, a backdoor pilot for a possible Doctor Who TV series in America. And if I am correct with my relatively newbie status, this would be the third American production of Doctor Who, because they were the two Cushing films, right?
Well, I don't think those were American, were they?
Those weren't American.
No.
Oh, let me have a look.
I believe those were British still.
Yeah.
Maybe the production company was British?
Wouldn't surprise me.
Oh, or American? Here we go. Doctor and the Daleks. Filming. The writer of the first one is American.
Huh.
Okay.
He wrote both of them. So yeah, they're both written by an American.
It's pretty much an American show now. We can all agree on that.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So I actually
I don't think
not.
we can.
Yeah. So I actually have not seen the Eighth Doctor's sole official adventure, if you will, not counting the Big Finish stuff, and the one short that they did bridging Classic Who and the new one. So it's interesting learning about that and learning, I guess, in a lot of ways. I guess I asked this question. was it a film? Was it a movie that divided the fandom? Because according to the movie, it was according to the documentary, the movie wasn't well received at the time. Correct.
Correct. Yeah.
Very
Well, the
correct.
problem
I
is
was in my 20s
no Americans watched it. That's the thing.
I was very excited for it, and I recorded it, and I could not get through the first like little bit of it, and I went back and watched it like 10 years later. I had it on VHS, self-recorded off TV for 10 years before I finally watched it. No one cared about Doctor Who at the time. No one in America, like, it was such a fringe thing here in that era. No one liked it here. And it was like considered the bottom of the barrel of all the nerd things. It's like, oh, at least you're not a Doctor Who fan, and you'd keep that quiet. You wouldn't tell me. Like,
well, I mean, yeah, it's like the documentary said. It's a niche within a niche at that point. So
that's a real gentle way of saying it.
Yeah, I think there was also, it might have been because I was looking at the history of it. I think there was also like a very like big episode of like what was like Roseanne or something that happened at the same time.
Yeah, it was Roseanne.
So I think American audience is going to be like, do we go watch the show that we know, or do we watch a movie that's from a show from a country we don't care about?
Yeah.
So now, as I remember, there was a lot of people who were watching, American audience who were watching Doctor Who when it was primarily on PBS. I think is a lot of what it was. There was no interest even in that fan base necessarily to check it out, or was it just the way that it was just promoted to like the larger mainstream audience?
I don't think that fan base at that point was large enough for the TV movie to get any traction.
No, it was small. It was, I mean, that's how I well, we'll get into our personal stories about it, but I was an active Doctor Who fan during all of this since 1983, I think is when I ended. So, it was small.
All right, so let's segue into that thing because I think that'll be interesting. So let's get into a little bit of what they say secret origins here. So let's start with Landry since he appears to be as old as I am.
Yeah, I think we're right in the same bracket.
So when did you first encounter the Doctor? I'll put it that way. When did you first encounter the Doctor?
I have discussed it on this channel in little bits and pieces, but to put it in kind of a linear bit, I mean, I was just channel surfing on this little black and white 13-inch TV, looking for something to watch on these 7 channels I think I got, and hit PBS, and it was the very beginning of Seeds of Doom, and I had no idea what it was. And it starts off with it's the pod. They're digging in the ice and they find the pod, and I was just like, that's interesting, and I just kept watching, and then next thing you know, they're bringing a science expert and his assistant, and I still didn't have any idea what was going on. And you know, they go off to they get a helicopter ride, not the TARDIS, so I have no concept of the larger part of Doctor Who. And this just really smart guy and his assistant are dealing with this plant person. I don't know the Doctor is an alien. I am hooked. I am already interested. I am very into this. And I missed the next episode because we had to go somewhere and I was very upset. Came back, watched the rest of it. Didn't know, because I think the first 2 take place in the Arctic. And so I missed this key, really great episode of it. So I finished that, and at the very end, they get in this blue box and disappear, and like, what just happened? What did I just see? It made no sense to me. It's not like I could look. I didn't have Google. It was for context here. Like I said, it was around 1983 or so. It was on PBS. I think they were doing an episode a day at that point, at like 6 p.m. or whatever, and I was hooked. And it was a very difficult time in my life. We were bouncing around home wise. We were doing a lot of couch surfing, and so escapist fiction was a big part of my life. Comic books and things like that. That's my gateway into comics. Was years before that, but similar. A lot of childhood trauma and finding something I could bury myself into that gave me relief from that. Doctor Who became that very quickly. The funny thing is, the next serial I start to see is they jumped They jumped all the way to Deadly Assassin from Seeds of Doom that has none of the lore at all. to where I'm like, why are they vanishing in a blue box? To the next thing I see is the Time Lords only give you 13 lives, and the Master had used all of his, and now the Doctor was summoned. I'm like, I thought I was hooked before that. I was so in. I went to the most lore-heavy episode of Doctor Who they'd ever done, and it was the one that established the lore going forward. Like, there was no limit on regenerations. We knew nothing about any of this stuff, and there it all was. So from there on, I went to the library. I found books on Doctor Who. I started getting novelizations. I found I could go to the Creation Convention in San Francisco. I met Terry Nation. I met what's her name, played Nyssa. I got autographed. And this is Nyssa. Like, so I was there I was along for the journey, basically right around the 20th anniversary with 5 Doctors.
Yeah,
I got to watch that real time. You know, and I think I had one other friend that I was able to get into Doctor Who, and we would talk about it. But you go to these conventions, and you really were like, you were below on the strata. You were below the ElfQuest fans, which I was also a fan of. But you were like, there was, you know,
That's pretty
superheroes, Star Wars, actually Star Trek, Star Wars, superheroes, and then a bunch of other stuff, and then Doctor Who at the bottom. And you know, it was a fandom all of the other fans made fun of because they needed that. But I would say the novelizations, those PBS specials they do, and the novelizations really just kept the entire thing alive. Wonderfully during that era for the American audience.
All right, Pixel, what about you? When did you first encounter the Doctor or the TARDIS? When did you get hooked into this thing that we all know and love is Doctor Who?
Well, when I was a kid, it was a little bit harder to actually like find time for myself to watch anything. But I did find a sliver of time. And it was just as like streaming was starting. I was watching on my Wii.
Oh Lord!
Yeah, on my Wii, I went ahead and put on the first season. It was on Netflix at the time, and I tried watching the first episode of the new series, Rose. I hated it. I hated it so much. I got through the episode. I turned it off. I was like, it's not for me. Not going to be my show. What happened after that was I had a neighbor across the street. I believe his name was Heath. And his parents were talking about it because they had this big collection of like shows and movies. They were into everything. And I said, oh, well, I tried Doctor Who. I didn't like that. And they did not accept that. So they took... was it 3? No, they took 2 box sets and put it into my hand, said, you're going to watch these. And then once you finish them, you can bring them back. I was like, okay. And I did. I started with actually series 3 with David Tennant. That year it was The Runaway Bride. Yeah. And after that, I finished all that up. I caught up on television, and that's pretty much what I did. That's what hooked me.
Did you thank Heath's parents?
Huh?
Did you thank Heath's parents? They deserve some credit here. They
do, because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the fact that you're like, you need to watch these. Because after that, watching series 3 and 4, I went straight into Matt Smith. I didn't go back. Finished all of Matt Smith, and then we were on to... Then Peter Capaldi became the Doctor, and I was watching live at that point. And then after I finished series 8, I hopped all the way back with the Twitch live streams, and I watched all the way up, following that along. That's why whenever we go ahead, anytime I'm watching an episode and they mention Heathrow Doctor, Heathrow, that they had in between every serial they showed just stuck with me. So, and then finally, after those is when I sat down, I watched The Ninth Doctor, and I watched David Tennant's first season. But not until I finished all of that.
Not to jump in on the moderator here, but I'm really curious. What was your reaction to the first regeneration?
For me?
Yeah. Because you came into it like you had a long gap before you would see suddenly Matt Smith.
Well, I had already, because at that point that I caught up, Matt Smith was already on TV as the Doctor, so I knew that there was a fundamental change in the show, and I knew it was coming. But it was, I mean, I liked that. I liked 11 more than I did 10. Loved Capaldi, and then caught up the long way around. And here we are today.
Yeah, that's funny because my introduction to the Doctor is kind of a mix of Landry's and Pixel's, where I was on a staycation with my family, and same thing, channel surfing, and came across, I think it was the Satan's Disciple, the Satan episode with Tennant. And it was kind of like very similar to Landry, like, what the hell is this? It's this guy in a spacesuit talking to like this giant Satan creature, and then kind of going from there. And then it's funny, then it segues to the Pixels experience, which was watching on my kids' Wii. We had Netflix at the time, and then basically jumping into Doctor Who from there. But it was around the same time. It was that pretty much Matt Smith was the Doctor at that point. He was live on TV as a Doctor. So it was pretty much watching Matt Smith and then kind of working the way through Tennant, and then kind of getting all caught up and really being fascinated by a character that I was kind of like tangentially aware of. Like I knew of people who, and it was usually older people who watched the show on Doctor Who. Was a lot of like, because a lot of, I would say some of the people in my peer group, if you weren't watching Doctor Who yourself, it was like an older adult, like a grandparent or someone like that who was into it and watching PBS, like they watched everything else on PBS, like Mrs. Marple and things along those lines that got them hooked into it. But with that, Joe, when did you first find yourself jumping into and journeying, going along your way with the TARDIS?
Well, what was it? I was aware of the show a little bit from a friend of mine, Rebecca, from middle school, high school. Yeah, we're still friends, but she was watching that in like middle school, and I was aware of it, but we were watching together more like Red Dwarf. So I was a bit of a Red Dwarf fan before I was a Doctor Who fan. It wasn't until I was working at Hollywood Video in my senior year of high school that we had VHSs, and like, you know, when I would see it with Rebecca occasionally, it was just whatever random episode was on PBS. But to get a story and start and watch from beginning to end was helpful. In particular, I was guided by my store manager, who is featured prominently in this documentary.
Really?
And
that's fine.
Is it the Long Island guy?
Yeah, Ken Deep, the guy who runs LI who's shown multiple times in over the course of the documentary. Yeah, he was my manager at Hollywood Video, was Doctor Who fan, was the one who encouraged me. It was like, here's start with Pyramids of Mars. We had that there. So that was like the first story I watched.
Wow.
And he got all of the other VHSs like in the district, sort of just transferred over to his shop. So we had like a bunch of, you know, Doctor Who stories. And he would tape on VHS, just do the longest you could, and was giving me all of these classic stories on VHS, like you know, Spearhead from Space, like basically the first season of Pertwee, Terror of the Autons, Mind of Evil, Curse of Peladon, Monster of Peladon, just all of these stories, a bunch of Tom Baker stuff, a lot of Peter Davison, Trial of a Timeline, just all these stories. Bunch of Patrick Troughton. One of the first things I watched from it was The Invasion.
Wow.
So all this stuff. So I was pretty well versed in all of it before they even announced that they were doing the new show. And I was still Hollywood Video at the time. I worked there through college. So when the Eccleston stuff was coming out in the UK, we were taking turns ripping them on DVDs and like exchanging them with each other in the parking lot. So we were
good old days of bootlegging.
We were all on board before there was any showing of it out in the States officially. So it's been a wild ride being into it, going through there, being into a lot of the early Big Finish stuff, which was great. Like Spare Parts was my first, and just going from there. Getting a lot of the Paul McGann stuff. I mean, he ripped it on the the movie for me as well. So I had a VHS copy of the movie before I eventually got a DVD that I think Paul McGann and Daphne Ashbrook have signed at this point, because they are often at LI Who, not necessarily every year, but every 2 or 3 years they're there. So yeah, I've been around for quite a bit.
And so, Chris, I'm interested in hearing how you first encountered the Doctor, because from what I get the sense from doing the show all this time, it's a little bit more difficult, if I'm right, for you to access it. So how did you discover the Doctor?
So here in Australia, we have our channel 2 is ABC, Australian Broadcast Corporation. So Doctor Who used to be on ABC. They had the rights to both classic, and then when the show came back, New Who. So weirdly enough, I started Doctor Who when it came back. Episode 2. I did not start with the first episode because I did not know what it was.
You're so lucky.
I randomly caught it on episode 2, End of the World. And I just thought, wow, this is really interesting. Had to look because, back then, TV guides, had to go have a look. Okay, what time is it on? Is it on every night? Is it every week? It used to be, I think, 7 o'clock every Saturday, I believe. So I would watch that, all of Series 1 every night. And then I think before Series 1 finished, just randomly, I turned on ABC probably around maybe 6 o'clock during a weekday. And it's like, I had a look at the TV guide and it said, Doctor Who is on. I'm like, that's weird. It shouldn't be. It's not 7 o'clock. It's also not a Saturday. I'm pretty sure it was like a weekday or something. So, okay, I had a look and I'm like, this looks old. What is this?
This is a Doctor.
Why does the quality look worse? It looks worse. And this was, 2005? This was on SD already. So how does the quality look worse? And that's when I found out, Doctor Who is actually older. There was there a series before it. Funnily enough, because I haven't watched the episode in like ages, it was one of the episodes of Warriors Gate. That I catched.
No.
I didn't watch it. I saw bits of it because I was confused about this isn't Doctor Who. That guy says he's the Doctor, but he doesn't look like Christopher Eccleston. First of all, he had a full set of hair, so it's definitely not Christopher Eccleston. So, but I didn't watch it, so I was like, okay. And then I looked it up. I was like, Doctor Who was actually, it's a very old show from the 60s. And I'm like, okay, fine. If I happen to catch another one, I'll have a look what it is. Then I think I properly watched through Legopolis, so Tom Baker's last episode. And then from there on, started with Peter Davison, hence why like Peter Davison is my favorite classic Who Doctor, because that's where I really started from. Same with like why Anthony Ainley is my favorite classic Master, because he was my first Master. So from there, that's how it all happened. It's not on the ABC anymore, which, you know, it's kind of good because the quality on ABC, it's weirdly enough, is, you know, I don't want to deal with 144p.
I love Warriors Gate so much.
Was your first regeneration then Tom Baker to Peter Davison before?
I think that's how I knew about regeneration. It's like, because obviously there's different actors playing the Doctor. So yeah, my first regeneration was technically
weird one
before I finished series 1.
Well, that was also my first regeneration, but I knew about it from the Master. So
yeah, but the thing is, because I wasn't in the big whole, like, you know, the internet space of Doctor Who at the time, so I didn't know that Chris Eccleston was leaving.
I was also not in the internet hole when I was watching Doctor Who for the first time. So we had a very similar experience.
You had telegrams.
Let me ask you guys this, and I'll throw this out to the group. Given the subject matter of the documentary, so much of it is about the fact that with 8, he's such a departure from what Doctor Who is supposed to be. Like, one thing I did not know, and was that he's basically half human, half Time Lord, which is a big departure from that. So I guess I'll put this out there, like sort of like a 2-part question. I guess the first thing is that what was it specifically, and it could be the concept, the character, the lore, whatever it is. What was it specifically that made you a fan of Doctor Who, that locked you into Doctor Who? And then what did you feel the 8th Doctor, or at least that story, because that's pretty much that story, sort of, for lack of a better word, betrayed what you knew and loved, or what made you love Doctor Who in the first place? Because it seems like, even though the movie has found an audience and found love and found its place in that character over time, it was sort of like, yeah, this ain't my Who guy.
You know that blonde guy in this documentary? Was that the studio, or is that you that put that line in there about the Doctor being half human? And he's like, well, I wrote it. And he's like, I'm done. And then later on, when they're talking about maybe the Doctor is the TARDIS, and the guy goes ahead and pops it, you know, you can tell him he's wrong. It's okay. The Doctor is not the TARDIS. I connected with that guy a little bit. Just a little bit.
No, I think we all did to some extent.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a bad moment. But I mean, the thing is, it's not a bad Doctor Who story. There was a lot that was good about it. And while I didn't like that, what people forget, the context of this is that it was coming on the heels of the 7th Doctor with all the, I'm not just a Time Lord, I'm maybe something more, which was, I didn't like that either. That was a problem. And so there was already this like undercurrent of like, yeah, okay, so you're half human. It's such a small thing that they don't really dwell on. It's very easy just to go and just move on. Like, it's not a major factor of the story, and they don't really spend a lot of time on it. And as I recall, I didn't feel they did.
It's almost played as a joke.
Yeah. But and there is, the funny thing is, you get your best moment with the new Master. Well, one of the best moments with him is actually in the ambulance when that's coming up. That just conversationally, you get this very conversational moment with the Master where he's just like, okay. And I loved that scene. I also love the scene where he first becomes a Master and he's like, my name is not Honey, or whatever it was. It's great. There's a lot to like about it. So I don't think there's a moment where I was like, oh, this did it for me. But I think it is an unfairly maligned bit of Doctor Who. It feels very Doctor Who in a lot of ways. For me, it it happened way earlier. The moment of betrayal for me with Doctor Who, the thing that got me to stop watching was Colin Baker's era.
Yeah.
Like the episode quality had gone down so much during the last stage of the Fourth Doctor, I think. And Colin Baker, who is a great person and has done wonderful audiobooks, his suit was garish. The direction wasn't very good. A lot of the writing I felt was really off. The companions were not at the best. And it was just, I was also, in fairness, I was like 15 at that point. And I was into the punk rock scene. I was dating. I was just, and it wasn't easy to get on TV. So I fell out. So for me, it was I'm too old for the Eighth Doctor to be my fall-off point.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point, Landry. Joe, I'd like to get your opinion on this, because watching Doctor Who Am I, it almost feels like it's cheating a little bit, like it's talking from a place where Doctor Who is a lot more popular at the time it was filmed, with basically the revival of it going on. And to me, to Landry's point, it felt like 6 was a hell of a lot more of a betrayal than 8 could ever be, in terms of what the Doctor represented or who the Doctor was, and what they were doing with 6. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a point to that. I think, though, there are just so many factors, like competing with Roseanne, like just not necessarily being the best introduction to American audiences. Like, they did a thing that I think fans like, where they're continuing with Sylvester McCoy and they show the regeneration. But I think Russell T Davies made the right call with Eccleston, of just like, we're diving in, this is new, we can always go back and show the regeneration later, but we've got to get new audiences on board. You were basically walking into a TV movie that was potentially the start of Series 27, less so than like a reboot. So I think that was a lot. It was a lot because, again, for most audiences in America, unless you were watching the PBS stuff, which, again, small audience, it wasn't like, oh, this is a show like, my dad or my granddad used to watch. Like, no, this was not a show here. You are stepping into the 27th season of a show you haven't watched. Again, using like The Master and all of these, and having leaning on, oh, these are old rivals. He was executed, but not really, and he's back. But like, I don't know this rivalry. What you're asking me to jump in on this, but I'm not invested in this conflict they have. I'm not aware of why they would have one. I'm just being spoon-fed. Oh, he was his nemesis and he got like, if you're introducing this show, like Russell T Davies waited 3 seasons to introduce a character like the Master for a reason. There were just these sort of things that I think prevented it from being a success in the United States at the time, with the cultural relevance to make it work.
I mean, well, I can only from my perspective, The Master was the first season for me.
Sure.
Because I started with Series 3.
But at least they built to him. They built him up.
Yeah, they did.
His introduction is dramatic.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's built in a way where it works for both classic and new Who fans. So
yeah. No, there is definitely. I mean, I can see that, but at the same time, I think if the movie didn't have that connection with Sylvester McCoy, I think I would look harsher upon it from this perspective now.
Oh, yeah. No, I get it. I think some of the best parts in the movie are that like first, if you broke it into a classic 4-parter, I think the first episode would be the strongest, and it kind of goes down a bit from there. Like once it fully degenerates into a made-for-TV live-action American action movie by like sort of the end to some extent. But yeah, I think it was great that Sylvester McCoy was in it. As a fan, I think the problem is like we talk about the movie, the writing, and all of that. Like it's all hindsight, right? If the show got picked up, you would all, which could have been the difference of just a couple of minor things. I mean, again, maybe the time slot's different. Enough people watch it, it gets picked up. Every criticism would be talking about like, oh, well, you know what? The kiss, sure, they didn't like it at the time, or like people complain, but that it worked. And all these things that are considered like, oh, making the Doctor half human, that was the right call. Like all of that would be thrown out if potentially Roseanne wasn't running at the same time. So like all of this stuff only means so much too,
I mean, I look at the series. I don't think it was an actual like series Bible, but what they were going ahead and preparing for if it took off, I am very glad that it didn't.
Oh, sure.
He's going with the Spider Daleks.
Yeah, I think that's the weird problem is like they want the new audience, but they're also like clinging on to the past, and then their way to bring the new audience is just what if we just reimagined all of the classic villains?
Yeah.
Because reading the original like scripts and like ideas, it's like making the original plan was make the Doctor and the Master brothers, like secret half brothers, and Barusa is their grandfather, and just like, oh, that's why the Doctor's half human, because his dad, who was the Master's dad, secretly had a child with a human woman. And like now they're going to go meet the Daleks. The Daleks are working for the Master because the Master wants to kill the Doctor. And here's the Cybermen. Oh, sorry, the Cybes.
The Cybes.
I do like the designs. Like seeing like the initial designs for what the Cybes were going to be. I like the designs, not for Cybermen though.
I guess that's sort of my point, is that this would, if it had been successful, in other words, if not for American white trash ruling the airwaves at that time, if it had been successful, this would be a very different Doctor Who, in a sense that other than McCoy being the connective tissue in the beginning of it, you're talking about something that if it had been successful, so like say probably American TV at the time, we're going to be realistic, it would have probably gotten 3 seasons or so, maybe 5 on the, if you're really being charitable, on the other end, on other, especially being on Fox at that time. It would have been a departure. So I guess what makes Who? What makes Doctor Who Doctor Who?
No, I'm sorry. That just came to mind. Though I mean. Actually, I was, when you mentioned it earlier, we were talking about how when you make the Doctor something more, something different, it takes away what makes him special. If you make him half human, he's connecting to us, that's why he keeps coming back to Earth. I don't like that. If you make him some elder Time Lord responsible for their creation, it's too much. The most special thing about the Doctor is that he's kind of a loser to Time Lord culture, and he's running away because he wants to see the galaxy. If you make him something special, you take away everything special about him.
Yeah.
Agreed, 100%. That's the best thing you could say right there. So like I said, my second serial I saw was, my first one I don't even know about Time Lords. I don't know he's special. I don't know anything, and yet Tom Baker's wit and performance, the cleverness of it, and the weirdness of the alien all grabbed me. But then all the lore in Deadly Assassin and it was fascinating, and yet you get in there while the Doctor does some amazing things while he's there. He's still like the loser Time Lord. Like when he encounters what's his name? His old colleague, his old classmate, who's like, "Oh, you? Really?" Like it was a great exchange. Like the Doctor wasn't like some chosen one or anything. He was just kind of the class clown that ran away.
It's funny because he's thrown in under the title of renegade, and he's not the worst.
No.
Out of all of them.
He's
at
different.
the bottom. He's at the bottom of that list.
No, yeah.
He's a renegade just because he wanted to leave. Well, everyone else is like, the Master's like, I want to cause chaos. The Rani's like, I want to do experiments with no boundaries and no morals. The monk wanted to change time. And like the Doctor's like, I just want to see stuff. And they're like, oh, you're actually the same as them.
We get that perfectly with the War Chief's reaction to the Time Lords being called. And the Doctor like, yeah, well, I got to call him. It sucks, but I got to call him. The War Chief's like, are you insane? Because it's so much worse for him.
And I think, as alien and otherworldly and all that about the Doctor that there is, that feeling of he's different because of these little things, I think that's what makes us connect to him.
He's different because of what he did, not who he was.
Yeah. And I think that's easy for people like us to just cling on to. Like, it's what we feel sometimes.
Yeah, but like, I mean, Russell T Davies did it in a way that sort of worked, like the overall retcon of, like, the retconning that happened in this movie makes his history more complicated. The retconning that Russell T Davies did was more of I'm trying to create a blank slate here.
Yeah.
Like, oh, all the continuity that's crazy that you heard about from the classic series, don't worry about it. Like, it's just an adventure with me and one other person, and that's that. Like,
it doesn't erase it. It just doesn't acknowledge it explicitly.
Yeah, but like, for me with the classic series and similar to like comic books and stuff like that, part of what was appealing watching it was the continuity of, I am getting into this show that has existed for a long time. The classic series had been finished by the time I watched it. So like I was aware of all these things and like being able to go back and watch key stories like that's all interesting to me. That's part of why I really love the series. That's not how you get a mass audience to pay attention to your show in the 90s. Like now with streaming, things are a little different, but back then, like you needed that and a show with a title like Doctor Who in the United States. If you don't know what that is, it's not like an immediately enticing title. It's just not. So that doesn't help.
Okay, so I'm going to pick up and I'm going to say one thing about this, what it makes who, and then get into that bit about the American audiences. But for me, it like in watching this show, my favorite, I guess, expression of who the Doctor was and what it made him special was and we get the 12's response to Missy when she was trying to make him like more than he was, like special, like, oh, you're trying to like, fix everything in the universe. And he's like, no, I'm an idiot. I get in my box, I fly around, I look and check all these things, I help out here and there, and it just so happens, and this is to Pixel's point, I think this is what makes him special is that just by being curious and kind, he has this outsized impact on the universe in a way that he actually is more special than I think he intended to be when he first started out. And he still doesn't necessarily, that's not necessarily his mission or his goal. He's just enjoying this thing that we call life. And, you know, and just a lot of good and consequential things happen as a result of it. But I don't think he takes himself as seriously as everybody else takes him. And to me, that's always been what's kind of special about the Doctor, is that his heroism in a way is sort of, I think the word would be incidental or coincidental, even, if that makes sense. But if the TV movie did not do well, if the classic series had garnered, while maybe a loyal following, a very small one, what was it about the revival that made it so much more successful than everything that had come before?
It was better.
Well, I mean,
I think it was kind of touched on already in that, I think maybe it was Chris who said, I don't remember, but the way the revival reintroduced things, you are Rose. The audience is Rose in that. I know that Pixel jumped in two seasons later and thinks this whole idea is confounding, but it was the structure that was approached. We learn about the Doctor as an audience as Rose does. She is our gateway, and he is, as we don't learn anything really about him until she learns it for the longest time, even down to the regeneration, everything we don't know. And I thought that was very good storytelling. Like, let him be outside, let him be mysterious, and let us go on that journey. The storytelling is a journey. And the main plot of season 1 is really just, who is this guy? And that's what made it work, that as mentioned before, why the TV movie didn't work. And really what worked about the show when it first launched in the 60s. Who is this guy? This makes no sense.
And that's so ironic, really, because the whole point of the reason why the title is Doctor Who Am I is because he has that. The Doctor asks himself in that movie because he doesn't know. But I think it's just there is a better way this could have been done, and that's not saying anything against. I didn't know he worked on Young Indiana Jones. I loved Young Indiana Jones. Yeah, loved it. But
never seen it.
I think that there's just something missing to make it all connect, you know? Right? Because there are a lot of elements, like, you know, the Doctor having a romantic interest in anybody. And when they brought it up in the documentary about, you're the first one that wrote somebody kissing. Do you ever think, well, that's me? That's what I did.
I mean, Hartnell had a little bit, like in the Aztecs or something, didn't he?
He had
he had a love interest or something. Yeah,
he did have, but it was just a little something. It wasn't really.
Yeah, he was very reluctant.
It was the 60s.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny. It's so trivial now that, you know, the Doctor kissing someone. Oh no, that's taboo. When that's just the norm now for Doctor Who. But it's so funny. It is weird how it kind of is against, like, the whole idea of, like, the Doctor can't kiss, the Doctor can't have sex, and it's like, when we are introduced to the Doctor, he has a granddaughter. The implication being he had a kid who then had a kid, or they got with someone who had a kid. But still, the Doctor, in some part, I don't know, unless they decide we need to go into the actual biological reproduction of Time Lords, maybe they don't have sex. But until we know about that, like, the Doctor had sex. So it's just weird that this huge, like, big, like, against.
We'll probably
that
discover
idea.
that Susan was the Doctor all along, a future incarnation.
No,
Oh,
no,
God.
not anymore. Actually, we didn't talk about this because we didn't have a news section really. But who was it? Was it Chris in
Mhm.
Doctor Who magazine?
Yes.
There was. Oh, crap. What's
Oh,
the
Robert
writer's name?
Shearman?
Yes.
Oh yes, yes, I heard about that. Yep.
He wrote. Well, he said in an interview with Doctor Who magazine that he doesn't know what the hell they're doing with Billy Piper. He thinks they really wrote themselves into a corner because at least back then talking about the wilderness years, there was there was still a current Doctor, but nobody knows if this Billy Piper regeneration is the Doctor because they don't know. And so now everything that's going to be coming out will just be, it'll be, what did he say, retrograde? Because it's going to be everything in the past. They don't have a future.
Yep.
They don't have a future.
Well, now, okay, and that's a great segue, because I know we're coming up on time here a bit, and I have two more questions. But one of my questions is that given what the movie represents in terms of a story that was told in the wilderness years, and we're finding ourselves in another iteration, we can arguably say, of what may be on the cusp of a new wilderness years, a possible hiatus to the group. Do you guys think Doctor Who has a third wind in it?
I don't know. There is that optimist in me that wants to say, yes, well, absolutely. We'll hear something. We just got to get past the Sea Devils spinoff, and then all the news will come out. Everything will be hunky-dory, but I don't know. I am at this point where I believe tomorrow we could hear Disney cancels showing of the war between the land and the sea, and it'd be like, okay.
Does it feel more precarious than, looking back in retrospect now, maybe this is more for Landry, possibly Joe, than the wilderness years?
No,
okay,
not at all. It was dead. It was so dead. I mean, it didn't. The thing is, Doctor Who didn't just. I mean, one could argue it's done the same thing. It petered out, right? It petered out badly, and one could argue that that's happened again. It's gone out, but I think that Doctor Who reached a fan base level, at least globally, that it is unmatched. Maybe in England it had matched it, but globally, there's so many more supporters out there for it now than there were during the wilderness years then. The people just didn't care. Now the reason it's doing badly is people care too much. They care so much. Maybe too much is the wrong word, but they care so much that they're upset. It's like, where is my Doctor Who? Where is my good Doctor Who? Where is the Doctor I know? They want Doctor Who. There's an audience there that will watch it. All they have to do is make one that they want, which they haven't really successfully done. Now, mind you, I thought several episodes of the 15th Doctor's first season were very good, and I enjoyed all the David Tennant stuff coming back. But they need to do a proper reboot. Maybe not. I'm not saying reboot in the sense of, like, I know because Pixel's got that look in his eyes. But, though I am a fan of a full reboot. But that said, or a Russell T Davies style reboot, but not for 2006, for 2026, one that makes the show feel new again. And there are ways to do it, but you don't do it by just doing the same thing you did 20 years ago again. Like, make it new.
But Joe, they didn't make it old. Like, so the thing is, this last season, even though it is RTD again, and he may take some inspirational beats off of himself, which seems old. It was trying to be new in a bad way. It didn't feel old either. It felt wrong.
He literally did not look at how he brought the show back and realized, I just do that again. The problem is, it's like, I'm going to make it new, but entirely reliant on the past. That's why we have like Sutek as the villain. That's why we have Omega and the Rani as the villain. There's no balance there. It's very obviously, oh, we want the new audience, but we don't want to drive away the old audience, so let's make it more reliant on the old audience.
Here's the thing. New, from a storytelling perspective, new is not necessarily about the content. It's about the tone. It's the style. It's the atmosphere. It's the voice. The voice feels like Russell T Davies because he's the same creator. He was. In all fairness to him, he just did more of what he does. But what he does is 20 years old now for Doctor Who. Give me a new atmosphere, a new tone. I just finished Alien Earth, for an example.
No spoilers.
What's that?
No spoilers.
No spoilers other than, I mean, tonally, it feels so fresh. Even though I've seen so many of the elements before. It's the atmosphere, the voice, the cinematography, the acting. It all has a nice rhythm to it. We have to remember that Russell T Davies' Doctor Who is vintage now. Like, I hate to put it in those terms, I really do, but it needs to look forward as a franchise. It's looking backwards. Yeah. You can still do Silurians, you can do Sontarans, you can do the Rani, you can do all of that, but make me excited to see how you're going to do them.
Yeah, I mean, I agree because I think it was clear. Like, if you had to say there was sort of a contract with the audience, it was clear that the Tennant specials was kind of like a makeup sex, if you will. It was kind of like, hey guys, remember this? You know, it was good at some point. You know, let's just kind of like go out on a couple of dates and kind of remember why we fell in love with each other. But then the idea was that the relationship was supposed to move forward. After that, maybe a new trick in the bed here and there, and it just didn't happen. It was, you got reminded of why I fell out of love with you in the first place with the 2 seasons proceeded after that.
There's a weird like irony in that the mistakes Russell T Davies made coming back to the show parallel fairly strongly with the mistakes that were made with the 96 movie.
There you go. Thank you, Joe.
We don't really we don't have to do that much to, you know, reintroduce the character of the audience. It doesn't have to really be a series 1. It can just be a continuation of what just happened. It's so weird that it's like you went out of your way to not make the mistakes of the 96 movie to then come back to make the mistakes of the 96 movie.
On steroids.
Isn't it ironic? Don't you think?
Yeah, Joe, you read my mind. Yeah, because especially when you guys were talking about laying out what the series would look like, and it was just like, dude, you went and did it. Well, let's wrap up with this. And I've enjoyed hearing you guys talk about this and always your perspectives on it. And I'll start off with Landry and Joe, and then I'll go to Chris now, and with Pixel. So Landry, what is your most personal memory of Doctor Who? If that question makes sense.
I mean, I think it really, like, in a lot of ways, it was my Doctor Who origin story. It was, you know, like I said, it came at this vitally difficult time of my life, and escapism fiction storytelling was it was a life raft, and getting to dig into this entirely new, very strange world. The most personal moment of it, it was the discovery itself. It meant so much to me to find something like that, because I was absolutely adrift. So I don't think I could name another thing that has that kind of significance other than this podcast, which is, of course, fantastic. So, match
Joe,
that answer, guys.
There you go.
You know,
Joe, what about you?
For me, I touched on a little bit, but you know, the the thrill of being there sort of at the ground floor when the show was coming back, the excitement about it, having only gotten into the show at all a few years before it was happening. So the timing was just incredible, and it's something I'm never going to experience again, in terms of, you know, working with someone actively who was such a huge fan. Like I was saying, the like making DVDs for each other and exchanging them, and then talking about it with someone who was such a big fan, with someone who you could find video of them on YouTube, like doing the PBS telethons, you know, during like the Colin Baker era and the McCoy era. You know, interviewing, I believe there's an interview of him with like Patrick Troughton in the 80s, like someone like that. To be there reconnecting him with the show, like someone who's that diehard of a fan. I mean, that was a lot, and yeah, just that feeling of like, oh, I'm watching this thing that's like, it's not even on a TV here in the States, and we're all up to date, and so, like it was a very unique and an interesting feeling and experience that I will never have again.
Yeah, I understand. Region 4. What is your most personal memory of Doctor Who?
My most personal? Oh boy. Well, having to meet during the time of the 50th anniversary, getting to meet Peter Davison himself.
Oh wow!
As I mentioned, it used to be on Channel 2, ABC, and they used to have their own stores here, the ABC stores. So I think I took a day off school. I was in high school, maybe high school at the time. I took a day off high school to go meet him, and just going in that lineup, the entire top floor of like the mall there was full of people just to meet Peter Davison, because the shop was in a mall, so it wasn't like a convention or anything. He was just doing a signing. So getting to meet him, getting a photo, getting him to sign my copy of the 5 Doctors, it was just an amazing experience. And just getting to meet just a whole lot of other just people that were fans of the show as well. It was great.
All right.
He must have been so happy to have someone as young as you were at the time excited to meet him.
I'm pretty sure there was someone younger than me there. But they could have been brought there with a parent, so who knows?
Yeah, but still, I'm sure you could have counted on one hand. Like,
yeah.
Pixel, what about you? What your most personal memory of Doctor Who?
This podcast. I do love this podcast. I was just I'm kidding about stealing his answer. That initial discovery, it led to young Pixel. When I was a boy, I would go to libraries and I started picking up guides and the random little graphic novel collections that I could. And I read through those so easy, like a hot knife through butter. And it was at a time that just, the reason why I love this show so much, it touches a little bit on what Landry talks about with comics, how this show is a playground with toys, and you can go ahead and do all these stories with all these kind of creatures and characters. It sparks such creativity. And especially at that point in my life, it helped a lot to think, you can tell stories like this and that, and making up things. It was exhilarating. So that's really all I can really say. Just the amount of inspiration that the show had given me was a gift.
All right. So as a moderator, I will take 2 bites at this particular apple. For me, my first very personal memory of Doctor Who actually has to do with the Sarah Jane Adventures spinoff. And I was watching it. My daughters, a lot of times when you're a father, you want your daughters to kind of share your interests as you do things. A lot of times they get dragged to stuff and they're glad to go because if there's food or popcorn or concessions involved, such as when I take them to wrestling events, they're more than happy to go, even if they don't necessarily like the content they're being forced to consume. I've managed to turn my daughter into a fan of the WWE universe. But when it comes to Doctor Who, I've not hooked my family as much as I would have liked. But the one thing with Sarah Jane Adventures, one time, I was sitting there watching it on TV, and I guess my daughter had just come into the room, and she saw Sarah Jane. And what always I love about the memory is she says it in a very like sort of flitting voice, Sarah Jane, and then she like basically she literally skips over, plops into my lap, and then basically sits and watches the show with me. So to me, that's something. It was when she was much younger. She's probably about 5 or 6, and that to me is like one of my favorite memories of Doctor Who. My other very personal memory is actually, and I wish I had kind of burned it more into my memory, and it's also what inspired me to have this as a topic for the show is as we were talking about the fate or the future of Doctor Who, and Pixel's talking about the fact that if there's never another episode of Doctor Who again, if it doesn't have a third wind, if it ends tomorrow, which I think none of us think that it will, but if it did, the fact that we have this time together, the fact that it brought us together as a group to talk about it, at some point I'll probably share, but I know definitely for the last year or so, this has been something, kind of what Landry said, it's gotten me through some dark times in my life, and being able to come together with you guys every Wednesday and for at least an hour during the week, just to be able to talk about something that I really enjoy and I love with a bunch of guys who have, and I include Jimmy in that as well, who have just made life fun as hell. That to me is definitely one of my most personal and most treasured memories of being involved with Doctor Who. So with that, as soon as someone can get these onions out of the room, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us tonight for this very special episode of Madmen in a Box. As I'm trying to remember what Pixel says all the time, like, share, and subscribe if you feel those do so. And we will see you next week. And with that, I will allow Pixel to sign us off with his signature.
Geronimo? Alonze.
Thank you.